Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the last part of this series, which is part 4. In this lecture, we'll be studying and looking into the aftermath, consequences, and effects of the war. So, let's begin. So, effects of the war include heavy loss of life and property because about 12 million soldiers were killed and 25 million civilians were killed because of hunger and disease, etc. 24 million people got injured in this war and they got handicapped in the battle. The atomic bomb, which was dropped by the US in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it resulted in a huge amount of casualties and destroyed the whole city. So as a whole, Second World War was very bad. It was such a bad tragedy to mankind. The Second World War was it also destroyed huge amount of property. It is also estimated that almost $1,000 billion were spent in the war, and America alone has spent almost $350 billion. So the war had completely and to some extent partially also destroyed building, roads, infrastructure, warships, and fighter planes also. Then there was after the ending of Second World War, there was the emergence of two victorious nations, which was the USSR and the US. So there came a division of world into the two blocks, and that led to the beginning of the Cold War, because the Second World War resulted the division of world into two blocks, and the US was the capitalist and the communist. So the capitalist bloc was led by USA, whereas the communist bloc was led by USSR. And that was the time when they started criticizing each other, and that resulted in Cold War. During the period of Cold War, nuclear weapons were made, which caused heavy destruction in a very short time. Then there were some certain wave of democratic changes in the world. So most of the countries, they got freedom and democracy, because after the Second World War, imperialism ended, and people of many country became aware against the undemocratic system, and they fought for democracy and independence. It also led to the ending of colonialism. So the imperialist countries, they became weak after the Second World War, and nationalistic movements against colonialism started in Asia and Africa, due to which many countries like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Egypt, they got independence from British Empire. Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos got freedom from the French Empire as well. Then there was this Truman's Declaration of Faith, because and after the Second World War, US का president था Harry Truman. So he declared support for the war victim countries of Europe, economically, so as to stop the influence of communism. And this declaration till now is called as Truman's Declaration. Then there was this Marshall Plan as well. After the Second World War, when Truman's declaration was done, then there was this George Marshall, who was the US foreign minister. He made a plan to support war victim countries, and that plan is known as Marshall Plan, and it was planned by George Marshall. And according to that plan, about $12.5 million was to be spent by US to reconstruct the European countries that were destroyed from the Second World War. So then more than 17 countries were restructured again in terms of good food, stuff, and agriculture and transportation. Then lastly, there is this Molotov plan. And after the Second World War, the USSR had established the Council of Mutual Assistance to provide the economic assistance to the European countries in 1949. And this plan was proposed by Molotov. He was the foreign minister of USSR. So the main objective of this plan was to support the European countries and to develop the trade and commerce So, after the ending of the Second World War, which was such a catastrophic event in the history of mankind, so during the war and also after, when the war came to an end, the destruction which was seen and witnessed and experienced by the world was so tremendous. It was so horrifying that the world leaders, they eventually thought that there should be an international organization which would prevent the world from war getting into conflicts. So similarly, if we look into the history, after the ending of World War One, there was this international organization which was established, and that was named as League of Nations by President Woodrow Wilson. And same its objectives and aims were that it would prevent the world from getting into war and conflict, and it would stop the aggressive nations through collective security. But uh, it died of its own contradictions, and then later its organs were absorbed into the UN. There were some failures and ineffectiveness of the league to perform. If you wish to study about the League of Nations, you can visit my previous lectures, and you can learn a lot about League of Nations from my previous videos. Anyhow, after the ending of Second World War, there was this establishment of UNO, and then after 1 month of the end of the war, the UN was established in 1945. The League of Nations was established after World War One to prevent the world from the war, but it was very unsuccessful, and because there were certain failures and ineffectiveness of the league, that it could not prevent the world from getting into conflicts and wars. And again, similarly, Hitler, how his aggressive policies have led to the failure of the league. So there were certain reasons. If you wish to study about the League of Nations and you know all about League of Nations, you can visit my previous videos and know about the failures and successes of the League of Nations. So anyhow, this Franklin D. Roosevelt and Winston Churchill, they signed an Atlantic Charter, and then later UN was established, and its main objective was that the organization would maintain world peace, and it would prevent the world from getting into war and terrible destruction. So if we analyze, I can also make another video on the evolution and the establishment of the UNO, and how that UNO is still operating today till date, and what are the events where UN is ineffective and it cannot perform well, and what were the successes of the UN. So another video can be made on this topic. Anyhow, this was all from me till now. This marks the end of this lecture. I hope you liked the video and gained some knowledge out of it. So, if you wish to study about World War One causes, events, and everything about World War One, you can visit my channel and watch my previous lectures. And if you have missed any topic of this series relating to the events and introduction and the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, you can watch my previous lectures. So I'll make another video which will be about the evolution and establishment of the UN. So stay connected until I upload the next lecture. So Allah Hafiz.